Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bandwidth. I'm Spencer Pose, and I'm here with my co host, Liz Creekmore.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. Spencer. So it's end of January. I imagine I think it's cold where you're at as well. It's absolutely freezing. I'm in Chicago and lived here more than half of my life, and I'm still not used to the temperature. So I just hope everyone is staying safe and
Yes.
and out of the cold. Um, Yeah, and certainly the weather affects our industry a little bit. We do kind
Hmm.
of see seasonal activity. I know in the winter we see a lot of people planning their network, strategizing their next build, not necessarily maybe doing the installs, maybe holding off on that a little bit. How does the season affect what you guys do?
Well, for us in Florida, it's colder than it's ever been. Like
Hmm.
this is ridiculous. Last year it snowed us out for a week. This year it
Yeah.
snowed last week, but nothing stuck to the ground, luckily, in the panhandle. And this weekend they're supposed to get snow flurries in Tampa, which has never happened. So for us, it's kind of a grinding halt of production. Um, Mainly because we're not built for the cold. It's funny in the South, every time when I complain about the cold, everyone's like, ha ha ha, it's snowing here. You don't know what cold is. And it's like, exactly. I do not
Hmm.
have the clothing that you have. I can't go to the store and buy the clothing you have. They
Yeah.
don't sell it in the
Yeah.
tropical areas. And so, yeah, when I wear shorts and SPF shirts every day, I'm not ready for the cold.
Right. Yeah, no,
Um
I think this winter in particular, I think we're all across the board, no matter what state you're living in.
yeah.
We're
Now,
all cold.
I know there's been a lot of power incidences. Mississippi, North Mississippi has had like 700,000 customers without power. And
Mm,
that's affecting ISPs, obviously. So our northern partners are all having to run around and put generators out, recharge their batteries, dealing with ice and snow outages. Um,
mhm.
so it has been a wild winter
Yeah.
storm, and this weekend it's just going to be worse.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone out there is staying safe. Yeah, so I mean that kind of brings us into our next episode in terms of talking about strategic planning and growth and safety. We have John Gill on our show again, which is incredible. He's going to talk to us about expanding your network
Yep.
through a growth acquisition. And then we have Jeff Little to talk to us about tower safety. So it's kind of perfect timing to talk about these two topics with
It,
two
it
of our
is.
industry. Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad to have two of our industry experts on our
A-
show.
Absolutely. And before we have them on, I wanted to talk about some of the current events
Oh
going
yeah.
on in our industry. So, yesterday, Starlink asked SBOs that are already approved by the NTIA for BEAD for exemptions, which I find
Hmm.
interesting that you apply under the terms of the grant, and then now you're holding these locations hostage for requirements you want to be changed. Most notably, they do not want a performance metric. So when you win a grant, you have to provide certain performance metrics to the NTIA or the state, whoever's administering the grant. And a lot of that is like speed tests. And Starlink wants to skip this. They also want to be paid for any address that installed, had bad performance, and cancel. They'd like to continue being paid for that location and it to stay served, um, which I find insane. They want
Mhm.
50% of their funding upfront, because they claim that none of the funding is going to actual build out because that's already built. Um, which, in a fiber sense, we're not going to fund a network that's already built. It's supposed to be for new locations. So, what's interesting is the NTIA has told states not to sign the agreement. And it's interesting because, like, is Starlink going to cancel their grants if they don't get what they want?
Mhm.
Which leads a big opportunity for Amazon Kuiper to pick up all the BSLs that Starlink rejects.
Mhm.
So this is going to be a big one to watch because it's going to set a precedence on whether sub grantees can start changing the terms of the grant
Right.
before they sign their contracts.
Yeah, and I
Um,
I saw that I saw the article circulating. I want to say I think it was on Wisp Talk. Um, is there a deadline, or do we know when a decision is going to be made regarding their request?
So at this point, it's still in discussions. SBOs, the state broadband offices, have to either sign it or reject it. Once
Mhm.
again, the NTIA is saying, please don't sign it. Now, my question is, if that state's NTIA plan is already approved and they're receiving their money, does the NTIA have any power to reject this for the states? So when they're saying states don't sign this, what if a state goes ahead and signs it?
Mm,
Is it, will
right.
it jeopardize the rest of the funding in that state? Will NTIA
Hmm.
cancel their plan, put it on pause, start a renegotiation? So
Right.
um, this kind of in BEAD, this is unprecedented because it's a
Hmm.
brand new program.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. That definitely is something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah. And I believe you said in our last episode you already got your ISP America's tickets.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, no, so I think with each of these trade shows, they'll circulate
Hmm.
a notice to the members, grab your tickets before usually they have discounts if you buy your tickets ahead of time. So I bought mine before the holiday.
Yep.
I kind of wanted to book it as a 2025 expense. I knew I definitely was going to go to the show, so I got that all taken care of. I've got a few shows in 2026 I'm going to be attending, so I'm kind of excited. I'm trying to branch out a little bit and go to
Yeah.
some of the smaller interesting shows as well. But
Excellent.
definitely, I mean, ISP America, being down at Atlanta, I'm very excited about it.
It's gonna be fun. I am
Yeah.
excited for Atlanta. I'm
Yeah, me
excited for a
too.
new location.
Hmm.
I think it's a location everyone can get to.
Yeah.
So all of our viewers should be attending, should be there. We're gonna do some live, unlive recording.
Hmm.
So we're going to have guests come to the booth we'll be at and do some recording there. And then you'll see that release right after Wisp America, as either a regular episode or a special episode.
Great.
Um, so get your
Yes.
tickets.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, early bird closed yesterday as we're recording this. So you're now going to pay a little bit of a higher price, but it's well worth the price. We've got hands on training this time. It's going to be a show to remember.
Hmm.
So be
Yeah.
there or be left out.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you see us too, and if there's a topic that we haven't yet discussed on our show that you think would be interesting to our viewers, feel free to approach us. We
Absolutely.
definitely, yeah, we're interested to hear what everyone's thoughts are. So,
And I'll be heading to Nashville in 2 weeks for FISPA Live.
okay.
This is a fun, small event, uh, but a huge think tank of a lot of big CEOs, in the fiber and wireless space.
Hmm.
So it's going to be exciting. We'll bring a little bit of that to you on our next episode. Um,
Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
yeah. And
That'll
so
be
with
great.
that, Liz, is there anything else you have?
Not at the moment. So yeah, let's
Okay, so
yeah.
let's go to John Gill and talk about expanding your network with mergers and acquisitions, and then after that, we'll talk to Jeff Little about tower safety climbing.
Well, today we're fortunate enough to have John Gill from Kentucky 5 back again on our show. Thanks for joining us, John.
Not a problem, Liz. I always love to be part of this.
Thank you. Well, so we have a lot of questions for you, actually, in particular, that pertain to growing your network through acquisitions, which is something that you have a lot of experience with. So I probably have a lot of general questions, and maybe Spencer has some specific questions for ISPs. But just in general, when you're looking to grow through acquisition, what are some criteria that you look for in the other entity, to know that it's going to be a fit and that you guys are going to be like-minded in terms of, growing your network together and obtaining your goals?
Well, for the most part, I try to look at someone that's close to my coverage area or, can be within a normal drive. You don't want to go out and buy an island and then
Mm,
try to make that work because then that's very isolated. You could have a 2 to 2.5 hour drive one way for a technician. So if that tech tries to go and do the job for it's a 2 hour drive and then it's a 2 hour job and then they're back home, that's a 6 hour day, so they're pretty much done for the day. And you spend all that time and money into that job that are you going to get the customer? Are they going to be satisfied? And then if there's a network outage that far out as well, it does make it difficult. So that's the main factor. The other factor is, diving deeper into the network, making sure things, what will the network require during the acquisition? Is it going to require a full forklift? Is it just some SOPs that you need to bring into their team to get those underway? There's also another formula of how much would it cost me to come into this area and acquire my own customers versus just buying up the customer base and all of the technology connected. And that also gives you room to expand. That's, yes, it's a bigger purchase up front and a lot more on there. And you got to look at will it cash flows. So it will they pay will it pay for itself? You're not getting the
mm,
company for quote unquote free, but is it going to pay for itself? Does it make financial sense? But I would do those in kind of that order. That's kind of where the acquisition knowledge comes from to get those neighboring ISPs or whoever they may be.
mhm. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And then, how do you even go about approaching them? I'm sure the neighboring ISPs you're probably familiar with. You might be friendly competitors. But how do you go about approaching a company to see if they would be on board with either an acquisition or a merger?
You sit down and talk with them, buy them coffee or lunch or whatever, start the conversation. It doesn't immediately start with, unless they're coming to you to sell, it usually
Hmm.
doesn't immediately start with a, hey, I'm here to buy you or here to buy you out or whatever you may say. It usually starts with a cup of coffee and a friendship, and you kind of build it from there. Also, let them know, hey, I'm not here to. I am a competitor, but we're friendly competitors. If and a
Hmm.
lot of that becomes, if there's a lead that this in their territory, you give them a lead or two there and here, and definitely help them out in that front because everyone's struggling with acquiring customers in highly covered areas. So, giving them those leads and giving them that knowledge. And for the most part, as long as you do that, make it a friendly transaction at the end of the day, it really does benefit you. And if it doesn't become a transaction, you've created a friend that at that
Hmm.
point, if you need parts or anything like that, you can call on them and say, hey. I need something, and then they will help you out.
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
big deal.
And then how do you pace yourself? Say you're very successful at acquisitions and it's working really well in your favor. Are there some things that you have to take into consideration? I know, like, I'm sure finances is one aspect, maybe technology is another, but how do you pace yourself? Do you set a limit for a number of acquisitions a year, or what things do you look at in terms of deciding should you move forward with one, or should you kind of like hold yourself back a little bit?
What I generally do is on those, I've taken the same formula that I've done with towers and taking that to the whole formula of buying an ISP. You may put up 2 or 3 towers a year, eh, eh, depending on how cash flow goes and how everything makes sense. But then you take that over to ISPs. Hey, is my cash flow good? Is everything, you know, down? Is everything structured? Can I, with my current workforce, take this on? If I'm not getting anyone during the transaction and it's just a customer base, can I take on 100 customers, 500 customers, however it may be? Can I do that? And that's when you
Hmm.
have to really analyze numbers and stuff. But it's the same as if you build a tower. Can I build this tower? Okay, can I afford all the equipment, the tower, and everything? Can I turn around and always be trying to sell to these people? And it's kind of the same formula. So it's pretty easy to transition over.
Okay. And then, just in general terms, like, how does the transaction usually play out? I mean, you said maybe sitting down and having coffee with someone. Do you then sign an NDA, a letter of intent, all the way up to closing? What does it generally look like for you?
So generally, out of the gate, having that conversation, and when you get to the point that they're ready to sell and ready to sign
Hmm.
paperwork, you sign an NDA. You look at their financials first, seeing if that makes sense. You look at their coverage area, seeing if you have overlapping coverage or right on the border, things that make sense. You start penciling out if they have employees or tower rent or anything like that, power, how what do their finances look like. And you always, someone will give you their tax statements, but just the same as everyone else shuffles numbers around in taxes to make it look better for the government, they're going to be shuffling their numbers around too. So you really need to take the taxes stuff with a grain of salt, and then take in all of that, their paperwork, their payroll, their everything, and then take it and do your own due diligence on that. And that's just the paperwork side. Once the NDA is signed, you can ride around, look at the network, see if things need to be improved. What can you dock on a due diligence report, or what stands out that is amazing in a network that you're like, I wish I would have did it this way, or I wish I would have made my
Mm,
network that way. So those wows, definitely write those down and understand those.
okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. And then,
I was just gonna say I've seen a lot of the lack of due diligence, and a lot of people buy a company and then they're like, "I didn't realize how bad it was." So I'd really echo doing the due diligence and
mhm.
properly.
Yeah, my first acquisition, some due diligence sneaked up and bit me pretty hard. I was able to remedy the situation, but it was, my attention was focused elsewhere, and then I had to pause everything I was doing and switch to the due diligence that I missed, and
Yeah.
remedy those situations, or we were going to lose uh, a place on a tower, a very strategic tower. So I was like, oh no. And then so we had to switch at the very last minute and kind of pivot for. So, those things, they may not, it really didn't cost me too much money. And that wasn't my concern. It cost me 2 to 3 months of my time. So when you look at 2 to 3 months of your time, you're like, oh, wow, it actually did cost me a significant amount.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then, in terms of like, what is your preference in terms of having the previous owner stay on board after the acquisition? I'm sure that's something that you guys discuss through the process. But yeah, I just want to hear what your preference is, what's worked for you in the past.
So I'm not very micro tech savvy. I know Spencer is. I know a lot of
Hmm.
ISPs are. I'm not very microtech savvy. I do love my Ubiquity routers. I understand them. I look at it as Android versus Apple kind of scenario. So, I my first acquisition was all microtech routers. So I had the owner stay on much longer to just help me out with the routers. I said, you're not
Mm-hmm.
here, but if I have a question and I may need you to go in and punch some things and do some stuff. So that's been helpful. And some owners want to stay on as a partnership kind of deal, but the biggest part of that is they're selling to you for a break. So if you do this transaction and you give them a year 2 years to stay on, however much, understand that they're going to pull a vacation card on you for 2 weeks. So, for 2 weeks you're just
Mm,
going to have to run the company on your own. But if you understand how everything works and has done your due diligence, it shouldn't be a massive problem. It's going to be an inconvenience, but it's not going to be a problem.
mhm. Okay. And then, sure that, no one wants any problems or issues to arise. But when you're doing your due diligence and investigating like a company that you would potentially merge with, what would be some red flags where you would say, you know what, this just isn't a situation for me.
So that's where you would take your past experiences owning your own
Mhm,
wireless ISP, and you got to look at things that you didn't do and learned as you grew, like battery backups or tower maintenance or things like that, and really look at those and then go,
mhm,
okay, what would I do in this scenario? If you roll up to a tower, yeah, the cabling may be a mess, but is their battery backup? Is, all the APs up correctly? All that kind of stuff that you would red flag your network for, that's kind of what you would red flag. Everyone's a little different, so I don't think there is a carbon copy that someone could copy. But my thing is, if you would do it and you don't see it done, that would be a red flag.
mm. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I think
Well,
that kind of covers all the questions that I might have. Spencer, do you have any?
yeah. So, John, moving to the technical side, do you leave these networks isolated as a separate network with a different company name? Do you eventually roll it into your network and Kentuckyfy? What is what is your preference technically?
My preference on the business, that's more of a business side for the business name, rolling everything into one company. So that way, you're not confusing customers. I know I've talked to some other people that are doing acquisitions and because they're buying islands, they keep the island the same name, which makes sense. But
Yeah.
in my scenario where I'm buying out my neighbors, then that, makes sense to roll everything under Kentucky Fi, do the same branding, do the same everything, so it really makes sense. But if I was buying islands, I think I would keep their names the same and stuff
Mm,
like that. As for the network side of merging these stuff together, it gets difficult there because then you get DIAs under contracts and all that kind of stuff. It gets very, very difficult doing that. Uh, I would look at that as more of, okay, hey, are these two main towers so close together we can shoot some redundancy from one network to the other until the contract runs out. And then we could look at some kind of merger of either a dark fiber or something along those lines. Or, if you're close enough, you could do, a high capacity 11 gigahertz shot or 80 or 60 or whatever it is. But that's really comes down to how it is. Uh, my biggest thing on that side is, it depends on how the customers are managed. If everything's NAT, it could be easy. If everything's IP addresses, it could be difficult.
And let's say you buy one network and they're billing out a UISP. You buy another network and they're running Power Code, and you buy a third network and they're running VISP. Are you keeping the billing system separate? Are you integrating them under one umbrella? How do you handle that situation?
Uh, in my situation, I'm comfortable with UISP. I've built many integrations for UISP, from website integrations for leads to texting. So I would take everything under UISP in this scenario. The one I'm acquiring, they're using a different billing system, so I'm just going to roll everything under UISP. What gets difficult with billing is the billing cycles of the customers. So, my billing cycle is different from their billing cycle. So
Yep.
that's just one of the pain points you have to work through. When you start acquiring networks, you have to have someone with some kind of knowledge. I was actually just talking to Nathan Stuke about this yesterday. If I were to go back in time, the number one thing the number one person I would hire 1000% would be someone to answer the phones and take bills. CSR or a secretary, whatever you want to call them, because when the stuff hits the fan, 1000% you want someone to stand in front of there so you can actually get the job done, fix the network, whatever. So whether that's a kid or a wife or whoever it may be to answer the phone, I would 100% hire them first, and that that's a massive help. I hear it all the time. I need another installer. I need another installer. You really need someone to answer the phone.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I personally did installs myself for 8 years. For me, it was always I need someone to answer the phone so that I can be out in the field working on the network.
Yeah,
Is
100%.
there is there anything we haven't covered that you would recommend or suggest to people looking into doing mergers and acquisitions?
Yeah, if you're on the buying side, make sure you understand what you're buying. Um, I'm so glad she's on this podcast because Liz understands this. If you don't have the license for the license link and you didn't include
Mhm.
it with the purchase, congratulations, someone else has your network because those license links are, high capacity or whatever they may be, and
Yeah.
you could literally lose your network because someone didn't renew their license because the company's not theirs anymore.
Right.
So
Yeah.
things like license, ASNs, they're very important. IP addresses, uh, getting an understanding of how the network functions. Also, 100% during your due diligence, do not just sit down with the owner. The owner's going to give you what he wants to give you. Sit down with the staff, if there is staff, sit down with them and go, hey, how many installs are you doing? Hey, how do you answer the phone call? How do you deal with customers? Or hey, what does the network look like? Like
Mhm.
what do you see as problems? What have you told your boss about in the last 2 years or 5 years that you want fixed?
Yeah, that's interesting, and I mean, I do hear uh, a lot of situations where I'm sure a lot of people wish they had done that.
Yeah, 100%. And also during these mergers and acquisitions, there is a lot of moving parts, not just legally, not just in the network. In general, it's a massive thing of just huge puzzle pieces. You can imagine trying to build a huge skyscraper out of Legos. That's pretty much what you're trying to do. But if you haven't done it before, you're doing it blindfolded. So 100%, I would reach out to the big guys that have done acquisitions. We're talking about Ryan, Nathan, Adair, um, Lou Elliott, like all these guys that have done these acquisitions before. Reach out to them. There's many, many, many more people out there. Those are just the ones that come to my mind, and talk to them and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And then when your lawyer drafts up something, 100% send it to one of those guys. Hey, can I borrow 10 minutes of your time to look over this letter of intent or purchase
Mhm.
agreement? Or, hey, I got all the numbers, but I feel I'm missing something. And, they could tell you, oh, yeah, you're not calculating for taxes for the employees or insurance or what have you.
Well, great. Thank you, John. I think this was very insightful for our listeners, and we appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me on again, guys. I love the conversations and everything that we have here. I think podcasts like this, whether you're on a tower listening to it or driving around or in your office, I think these are
Mhm.
highly beneficial, and I absolutely love them. From all the podcasts that have done from years before to the podcast now, they're a wealth of knowledge.
Well, thank you, John. We'll have to have you on again.
Yeah. Thank you, Spencer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joining us today is Jeff Little, CEO of Above Wireless LLC. Jeff, thanks for joining us on today's show.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
yeah,
Hmm.
no, it's great to have you on because I think we've been wanting to have you on for quite a while now, and definitely want to talk to you about tower climbing and certainly cover tower climbing safety because I know that a lot of the companies in our industry try to cover all the climbs using their own crew, and I kind of want to talk about where you guys come in and maybe you can cover some of the scenarios with us that would necessitate maybe outsourcing a climb to experts like you guys.
Hmm.
Some yeah. Well, there's scenarios where it makes sense to have a contractor and areas where it doesn't. And kind of where I like to tell my clients is that if you see a end of the road to a project, like you just need to get a certain amount done, it's most likely will cost you less time and money to have us come in because we already have the insurance, the Aveda, all the road obstacles that you would have to do the work already set and ready to go. So unless you plan on like continuing to build or see the need for a lot of workforce and future projects, then a lot of times that's where we save you time and money is that we can just come in and take care of what's needed and you get to see your ROI from your equipment.
Yeah, and then from a perspective of someone like myself that doesn't climb, are there certain structures that are more difficult to climb than others? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, some towers are harder to climb than others. Like some people don't like climbing on a monopole because it doesn't feel like you're supposed to be there. Uh, and it's just pegs. Sometimes guide towers can be a little crowded and your climbing can be pretty restricted, or maybe there's not climbing face on the tower, so you're actually climbing on diagonals and, just not the most comfortable climb.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah.
would say monopoles is genuinely the hardest ones for my guys to climb and be comfortable, especially starting out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then are there any scenarios where you guys would come across and say, I think that we should cancel this climb or postpone it? What are some scenarios that maybe come to mind?
That is all what I call like the tribe vote. If everybody is uncomfortable, then I'm not going to make them climb. Me, unfortunately, when I had to work, there wasn't such thing. It was just get it done regardless. So I try to be more sympathetic to my guys, so I let them kind of decide if they're comfortable. So we have a
Hmm.
lot of scenarios where maybe one of the climbers isn't comfortable, so he might not do a certain scope of work item or even work at all. So it just depends on the experience level and the comfortability of the person.
And then in terms of tower safety, I'm sure that you guys review safety climbing procedures. But what are the procedures for rescue?
Oh, well, a lot of times, we got to research for safety climbing, so learning everything there is to do that, but also rescue. And one of like the requirements for us is that once a year, every worker needs to actually perform a practice rescue, not just take a
Mm.
test and pass. You need to physically get a practice dummy or a rescue person and put them in one or two scenarios and update them. So it's kind of like riding a bike, you got to kind of get back on it and get the hang of things. And, granted, you
Yeah.
can still jump on it, but, you still got to get the feel and keep your skills up to date.
Do
Hmm.
you get your whole crew together once a year and you knock that out at once, or do you do that individually? How do you at your company work that out?
Generally, like our new recruits that we bring in, they'll get one-on-one, like training just so they can get up to
Hmm.
par to be able to work because you have to train them before you put them on the tower.
Right.
So, but yearly, we'll get everybody off the bat, even if you've taken it 9 months ago, and we just have like a week where we retrain and learn new skills.
Okay. Yeah, like a safety retreat.
Yeah, we'll do
Mhm.
CPR, first aid, RF awareness, climbing and rescue, rigging, capstan hoist training, vertical lifts, rescue training, using all the machinery. We have training for that for like the ATT tools and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
it's about 18 to 26 certs per employee, depending on their level.
Wow.
And then what are some traits that, like physical or mental traits, that you look in that you look for in terms of when you're hiring tower climbers? What makes a good tower climber?
Oh, it's hard to tell. You can just kind of tell their body movement, how well they're comfortable on the tower. So if you have someone that's squeezing real hard and their knuckles are white and
That
they're,
was
not
challenging.
quite there,
Yeah.
that and body type does work at play a factor. If you're only 130 pounds, there's some things that you're going to be maneuvering that weighs more than you. So just
Hmm.
about 150 pounds to 180 is like the sweet spot where they're not too heavy to work and
Mhm.
climb, but they're not too small where everything's bigger than them or heavier than them that they're messing
Hmm.
with. So
Yeah.
as
I
far as
guess.
I was,
mentality, it's more or less just kind of like uh, it's hard to explain. I guess the wild guys, the wild childs, the guys that are daredevils, the ones that are kind of have the riskier hobbies, the guys that ride the crotch rockets, stuff like that. That's kind of
hmm
like the personality traits that kind of succeed doing this.
Okay.
I was once 130 pounds.
um. Yeah, and then let me think. Yeah, I mean, what are some key pieces of advice that you can give? I mean, I don't want you to give away all your trade secrets, but what are some pieces of advice that you can give to other tower climbers out there?
Well, what I tell everybody, including my employees, is be hungry and learn. Just because you don't think it pertains to you, you should definitely pursue the knowledge. That's kind of how I got to be in my position. Is that I was a climber, and then I saw someone messing with something on the ground. It's like, what's that? Let me do it. You just tell me what buttons
Mhm.
to push, and why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? So it just you got to be hungry, and to shine being a tower hand, you got to kind of know what you're doing and produce results.
Mhm.
Because it's not like another
Hmm.
job where your boss is looking over your shoulder. You're up there, and you got to really perform and
Yeah.
shine in a different way to be able to be seen. To work your way up the ranks.
Yeah, and what kind of what are the ranks? I mean, when someone starts out, are they generally a support, part of the support crew on the ground watching someone else climb, or?
Well, what we call them is like gophers, go for this, go for that. So normally when a tower hand starts, it's hold this, hold that, hand me this. They just kind of get to be comfortable on the tower.
Mhm.
And we kind of gauge people on that. And if they're getting comfortable and wanting to work, or like, I'm bored, give me something to do, or they do something and they're doing it well and they need more things to do, then that's kind of will show us
Mhm.
how the fast track. But you kind of start off as an apprentice, and so you can't climb by yourself. You're going to be assisting
Hmm.
somebody, handing them stuff. It gets to be where you're like just kind of a useful tower hand, like go over there and do that, and then you let them do
Mhm.
little piddly stuff, and then it gets to be where you're what we would call a fully trained tower hand, and you might get your own sector to do, and then everybody pivots and punch list each other's sector to see if there's any issues and do that.
Hmm.
Then it gets to be top hand, where you're the one in charge. This is where to put the block. This is how I want it to go. This is what you're doing. And then after that, you get off the tower, hopefully.
And then, and so I'm familiar with microwave antennas, and obviously they come in all sorts of sizes. Um, when do you start? When do you go from strapping it to someone's back to then hoisting it up with a cable? I'm like,
Yeah.
what
What is the
dish size?
difference? Like
Yeah, where's the
weight
cutoff?
wise, size
Is it?
wise?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, well, you're not really supposed to climb. People are not supposed to be
Oh.
for material handling, is what they would call that. And
Interesting.
in my older days when it was, not really regulated as heavy, it was kind of up to you. So I've climbed up stuff that what weighed as much as I do. You got to
Hmm.
think when we go to rig a broadcast tower, the rope's about almost 300 pounds on your side if you're climbing it up by yourself. So yeah, but that's what it would kind of dictate is the weight. But I would advise not to use people for material handling. Use a rope. It's a lot easier on your climber, and you don't have to worry about your dish getting messed up either.
Okay, yeah, I know. I just
Hmm.
assumed I assumed they would like a
We've had a
strap.
few fall off the tower on the way up.
Well, no. As far as dishes that we've installed, they've ranged obviously from a foot to
Hmm.
over 12 feet. We've done a
Wow.
couple of 16 footers. Those were good 45-mile hops.
Yeah. Do tower companies do they hire you guys also to change the lighting? I know some towers are so tall that they require the special lighting on top. Is that
Yes, and it's
something?
not $20,000, I'll tell you that.
Oh,
No,
okay.
not at all.
No, but yeah, lighting is there's a lot of scope of work items that are seasonal, and
Mhm.
lighting has its time in the year where they'll go, and it's usually in the fall, and we'll
Mm,
either go update lights or put them in. So the reason why there was a lot of that work is because the FAA said that if you put these particular lights, you don't have to keep repainting your tower,
Hmm.
and that's
mm,
significantly cheaper. So
Okay.
that's why there was a big boom in the past decade to relight. Plus, with the LEDs, the electrical savings alone was worth it. So,
yeah.
Mm.
but yeah, we do a lot. We do lighting, but it's normally closer to like the end of the summer, fall time.
Okay.
Okay. And then yeah, with those lights, how often do they have to be replaced generally?
Well, the old halogen lights, they would last about 2 to 3 years, depending on the weather. If you had an area that had
Hmm.
very big ups and downs between summer and winter, it would be about 3 years. But there are some that could go up to 5. But that was just a
Okay.
simple $70 bulb that you would replace it with. But now these new LED systems, they'll last a decade.
Okay. Wow. Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
And it's freezing outside. I'm in Chicago, so kind of thinking about do you guys ever climb towers when it's when there's like freezing
Frozen.
rain and hail, and if the tower itself is frozen, where do you kind of draw the line there? What's possible and what's impossible and dangerous?
Well, we've had to climb in all kinds of climates. Again, it's just kind of the comfortability. A lot of the times, if it's so, let's just say it suddenly starts hailing, we're already up there. We're probably just gonna sit. If it lasts just a couple minutes, we'll tough it out and stay up there. But obviously, if it's
Yeah.
hailing before we climb, we're like, I don't know about this. But
Hmm.
I've climbed in many extremes. I remember I was on the tower in South Dakota in winter, and I'm like, what's the limit to the leader downstairs? And he's like, -20. And then I looked at my thing, and I'm like, it's -21. He's like, oh, sorry, it's
Negative
negative
30.
30.
Yeah.
So I've
Like,
never been able to achieve these cutoff limits, but
Okay.
nowadays it's kind of the tribe. I've had the guys not want to climb because it's just missed him, but I've also had them Lieutenant Dan it up there in the storm as well. So it's just kind of how are they feeling today?
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Does customer impact make a difference there
Obviously, if we have a
with the
big time
outages?
customer and stuff like
Hmm.
that, it comes with the territory. So like storm relief, the guys don't even get a hotel room. We'll just take turns napping, and we'll have climbers alternate, and they just
Yeah.
nonstop work, and
Wow.
it's we don't stop. Yeah, just
Hmm.
keep the getting the stuff up. So
Mhm.
yeah, it just all
Yeah.
depends.
Well, it sounds like you're really busy. Do you have plans to expand, especially with the upcoming bead infusion? Are you guys prepping for that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Always trying to hire. I mean, at least for us, we're always trying to bring on people. It's just very hard to get people dedicated to climb. and to want to
Hmm.
do this. So it's a very it's that's its own challenge, is that I need 100 people. It's hard to get one or two.
And then, yeah, what geographical region do you guys cover? Do you cover all the North American states?
Yeah, we cover everywhere, even Alaska. The only state we haven't, as our company, been able to work in yet is Hawaii. But our general footprint is all over, but I make it make sense. So I kind of get a couple clients out west bundled together, and then I save them all some
Hmm.
money, and then I go out there and do
Mm.
like a West Coast tour. And then usually when
Yeah.
I do that, I'll announce it online. I pick up a couple extra customers along the way and
Hmm.
make it make sense. But yeah, the we'll go wherever we're needed.
And then, how does scheduling work with your company if someone has a project in mind? How do they get in your calendar?
Usually, we encourage people to let us be a part of the planning stages so we can help them
Hmm.
design their site, but also work with them to make sure it makes sense on our schedule as well. So we just kind of say it could be the middle of next month. Luckily, we work with our clients and we're planning stuff well ahead, So let's just say yesterday I was working with a client and their project's in June. So, but I generally just try to fit everybody in. So I'll have gaps, like a week gap in, let's say, the middle of
Hmm.
May, and then I'll all of a sudden get a client. I'm like, hey, I got middle of May is right open. They'll be like, I'll take it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
generally, you got to schedule with us and work with our schedule. But we also pull miracles off if we're on our way to Missouri and we got to stop in Illinois for an emergency site. We'll take that one day extra and go hit it real quick, and then continue on to the project in mind.
All right. Well, we'll include a link of how people can reach out and get in contact with you. Spencer, do you
Yep.
have any further questions?
I just say, do you what would you leave with everybody with, as far as like what is your top five safety tips?
Top five safety tips. How about this? It'd probably be easier for me to leave a good safety uh, exit, whatever you want
I
to
like
call it.
that.
But
Yes.
uh, what I would suggest is this, unfortunately, industry is not educated enough in workforce development and safety, that I'm hoping that everybody can start to see the benefits of keeping your workforce safe and educate them and how to do things the right way and the safe
Hmm.
way. And just like any other industry, y'all are starting to get big and becoming these mini carriers. And just like them, they had to implement a lot of safety because of accidents. We've had a death last year, and that was from the wisp industry. And I'm hopefully that will be the last, but I would say it's not. So I encourage everybody
Yeah.
to invest in workforce development and invest in safety more, and let your guys be safe and knowledgeable.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on board. We really appreciate the insight you give our viewers.
Yeah, guys, it was a great opportunity, and if you want to meet again, I'm definitely down.
Well, Spencer, that was an excellent episode. I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, I think we had a lot of good content for our viewers. I really liked hearing about how John is growing his business
Hmm.
by mergers and acquisitions. It was very insightful on how
Hmm.
to grow your network quickly. And then all the safety information we got from Jeff Little was
Right.
great information.
Yeah, it never hurts to have extra information on safety for sure.
Yeah, I think that's something you just got to always keep training on. I mean,
Hmm.
the industry changes so fast. New safety tools come out. So it's just something you got to learn and keep your guys training and training and training.
Right, absolutely. Well, on that note, yeah, next time I see you, Spencer, you'll be at FISPA in
Yeah,
Nashville.
in Nashville. Yep, that's going to be
Yeah,
fun.
that is. Nashville's one of my favorite cities.
Yeah, it's what is it, Broadway or
It's,
that main strip with all the
yeah,
bars.
right.
It's fun. You can have a blast there.
Yeah, it's definitely. Well,
Um,
I'm sure you'll have fun, and if our viewers tune in, they'll get to see you have some fun too.
yep. Tune in next month to see a little bit of Fistful Live during our
Hmm.
episode.
Yeah, and if yeah, again, if you have any ideas for topics, or if you'd like to be on a guest on our show, feel free to reach out. If you like our show, hit like and subscribe to stay in touch and see more episodes. So thank you for tuning in.
We'll see you next month.
Yep, stay safe.